Hello and welcome. Find a comfortable spot, take a deep breath, and let's just sit together for a while. We're going to have a real talk today about the shape of our world. We live in a time that can often feel completely overwhelming. Sometimes it feels as though the world is just slipping into chaos where nothing makes sense anymore and everything is unraveling. But we have to remember, we are not abandoned, nor are we powerless. Today, we are going to look clearly and bravely at how our global neighborhood is functioning, and more importantly, how we can fix it together. Imagine a world where a group of people so small they could easily fit into a local football stadium owns 3 times more wealth than the entire bottom half of humanity combined. Sounds like a dystopian movie, doesn't it? But what if I told you that is exactly the world we are waking up in today? It breaks the heart, doesn't it? Our global economy is built on a massive, glaring contradiction. On one hand, we have a tiny group of people at the very top who are accumulating money faster than at any time in recorded history. Global billionaire wealth has reached a towering $18.3 trillion. Just since the year 2020, that massive fortune has grown by 81%. Now you might look at those numbers and think, well, maybe those folks just worked millions of times harder than everyone else. But wisdom tells us a very different story. This extreme hoarding of money is not a natural event, like the rain or the tides. It is not an accident. It is actually the result of very specific choices and rules made by people in power over many decades. For a long time now, the rules of the game have been altered to favor the few. Taxes on the wealthiest were deliberately lowered. Secret financial hiding spots were created. This built a rigid structure of extreme inequality. In almost every region of the world today, the wealthiest 1% holds more money than the bottom 90% of people combined. Let us look closely at how they hide this wealth. Have you ever played a game of hide and seek where someone found a spot that was completely off limits? That is exactly what the global shadow economy is like. Highly mobile money can easily escape the rules of a home country and simply go elsewhere. Every single year, governments around the world lose up to $600 billion because big multinational companies shift their profits into secret accounts to avoid paying their fair share of taxes. Poorer, developing regions are hit the absolute hardest by this trick. They lose hundreds of billions of dollars every single year. That is the tragedy, especially when you realize those same nations lose far more wealth to the rich world than they ever gain back in charity. This secret movement of money starves local communities of the funds desperately needed to build schools, fix roads, and staff hospitals. And it is not just happening with secret bank accounts. It is also happening right in front of us through monopolies. Massive technology and medical companies take over entire markets, shutting down local businesses and capturing all the profits for a tiny group of owners. Think about the digital world. Right now, massive corporations harvest our personal data and use it to make billions. But imagine if we treated our digital world as a shared community space, a digital commons, where data is owned cooperatively by the people who create it, rather than hoarded by corporations. The pharmaceutical industry plays this hoarding game too. Instead of freely sharing new medical discoveries to help everyone, strict global rules protect their inventions so they can charge incredibly high prices. This keeps life-saving medicines completely out of reach for many vulnerable people. Furthermore, we are right now watching something called the Great Wealth Transfer unfold. Over the next 25 years, an estimated $83.5 trillion is going to be passed down from older generations to their children and grandchildren. Without fair taxes on these massive inheritances, this money will just stay locked at the very top, creating powerful family dynasties. For most of the world, the life you get to live is increasingly decided simply by how much money your parents had when you were born, effectively ending the idea of a fair go. What if I told you that being poor doesn't just empty your wallet, it actually steals years of your life right out of your body? All this money moving around in secret accounts isn't just math on a computer screen. It has a brutal, heavy human cost. The extreme hoarding of wealth is directly linked to people not having what they need to simply survive. Let's talk about water. Right now, the world has entered what scientists call a global water bankruptcy. The water systems that billions rely on have been pushed past the point of natural healing. Today, over 2 billion human beings do not have safely managed drinking water. This lack of water hits the poorest people the hardest because they simply cannot afford the expensive private pipes and filters that the wealthy can buy. When a society treats water as a product to make a profit from, rather than a basic right, the poorest people are punished just for where they happen to live. Then, there is the food we eat. Well, over 2 billion people simply cannot afford a healthy diet. This isn't because the earth doesn't grow enough food. It is because food prices have skyrocketed. When food prices go up even a little bit, severe malnutrition in young children rises sharply. Because of this, millions of children globally are stunted, meaning their bodies and minds won't develop properly. Even in wealthy places, many households struggle to put dinner on the table because everyday wages just haven't kept up with the soaring cost of staying alive. Because of all this daily stress, inequality actually changes how long we get to live. The life expectancy gap between the richest and poorest is widening drastically. While the wealthiest add years to their lives, the poorest see zero improvement. Inequality damages our communities by creating a constant hum of stress, fear, and insecurity. A fair world isn't just a nice, warm idea. It is a basic physical requirement for human survival. Sometimes we tell ourselves comforting stories that certain advanced nations have figured it all out, that they are perfectly fair. But that is a myth. Even in nations famous for their social safety nets, choices to lower taxes on the rich have led to a tiny fraction of billionaires holding more wealth than millions of their poorest citizens. And in the global south, the pain is rooted in deep historical injustice, with incredible amounts of wealth continuously flowing out to richer nations. Here in our own backyard, we face a deep paradox. On paper, average wealth looks high, but our communities are suffering from severe housing costs. The biggest engine for this gap is treating housing like a stock market game to be won, rather than a basic human need. Mortgage debts have jumped massively, while wages have barely moved. This means a whole generation is locked out of ever owning a home, and the First Nations peoples of our land are still being left behind, facing a deep income gap that traps many in the lowest brackets, denying them the foundation they deserve. Now here is the turning point. What if the solutions to all this aren't locked away in some politician's office, but are already growing right in our own neighborhoods? We do not have to accept this as our reality. We can build a better home for humanity. But to fix a global problem, we need global solutions. Right now, there is a massive effort at the highest levels to create a fair, worldwide agreement on taxes. Historically, tax rules were written only by the richest nations, which meant massive companies could easily shift their profits away from the poorer places where the actual hard work was done. This new global framework aims to change the rules so that all nations get an equal say. It is about stopping the secret movement of money and bringing tax dollars back to the communities that actually earn them. And there is a growing understanding that we must tax extreme wealth and pollution. A tiny global minimum tax on just the billionaires could raise massive amounts of money to fund healthcare, schools, and climate protection. If we tax the big companies that pollute the earth, we can use that exact same money to directly help families. We can save the planet and end poverty at the exact same time. But we are not just waiting for the top leaders to fix things. Ordinary people are taking their power back from the bottom up by reclaiming the commons, things that should belong to everyone. Take housing, for example. To fight the insane cost of buying a home, communities are building land trusts. This is a brilliant idea where a community non-profit owns the land, but you own the house that sits on it. Because the land isn't being sold for profit on the open market, the homes stay permanently affordable for generations. It is a system that actually protects families from the chaos of the market. We are also changing how we work. Extreme wealth comes from companies taking the value created by workers and giving it to external shareholders. But there is a cure for this: worker cooperatives. These are businesses owned and democratically run by the workers themselves. In a cooperative, the top bosses only make a little more than the average worker. It brings fairness directly into our daily jobs. We are even sharing electricity. In our own southern communities, people have built something amazing called a virtual power plant. They took thousands of public housing roofs and installed solar panels and big batteries on them. All these homes are linked together to act like one giant, clean power plant. It keeps the main energy grid stable, but more importantly, it gives very cheap, clean electricity straight to low-income families. It turns people who used to be victims of expensive power bills into active owners of a clean energy future. And finally, we are learning the incredible power of simply trusting people. A lot of debate has happened over the idea of a universal basic income, giving people a guaranteed amount of money every month, with absolutely no strings attached. Well, the results are in. Massive studies have proven that when you give people long-term, guaranteed money, they don't stop working. They do the exact opposite. They start businesses, they clear their crushing debts, they invest in their community, and the fear goes away. Giving people unconditional support assumes they are smart and capable. It gives them the baseline security every human needs to truly bloom. My friend, the deep imbalances in our world today are not an accident, and they won't fix themselves if we just look the other way. The architecture of our economy has been built to funnel money straight up to the top, while pushing the pain and the environmental damage down onto the rest of us. It has locked billions out of healthy food and clean water, and is literally stealing years of life from the most vulnerable among us. But we know the blueprints to rebuild it. It requires changing the global rules so poor communities stop bleeding money. It requires taxing extreme wealth to heal our environment. And it requires all of us on the ground sharing our land, democratizing our workplaces, and ensuring everyone has an unconditional foundation of support to stand on. Fixing this isn't just about charity. It is about a structural shift. It is about moving away from a world of extraction and chaos and stepping into a world built on shared equity, democratic choices, and universal human dignity. We have the tools right in front of us. We just need the courage to pick them up together. Take care of yourselves and look after your neighbors. Until next time.